Today's video is an interview with Chad Willardson. He's the president and the founder of Pacific Capital in California. He's a certified financial fiduciary and then a chartered retirement planning counselor. And then a few other letters are after his name. But the main thing is he's got a lot of experience in helping people live their ideal retirement. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, look for the bookmarks below so you can skip around to areas that might interest you the most. But some of the topics we talk about is the difference between some retirees who have done it well, retired well, and then those who struggle. And then he shares a little bit on retirees that have had continually grown their purpose and their significance in retirement, and a story about a person who's done that. And then he shares a bit on how to pass values on to your kids and your grandkids, because the money part is important, but also some of the values and learnings and things that we have, the wisdom, is even more important. I really enjoyed this interview, and I believe you will too, so let's get into it. Chad, a lot of the viewers that are getting close to retirement or already retired, they're focusing most of their time on that planning for that retirement, right? So you've been helping people for a long time get to this place of, call it retirement or financial independence or time freedom. And when you're looking back over your career, are there any big differences that you see between people who were successful in retirement and then those who struggled a little bit?
Yes, that's a great question, Dave. I would say those who are successful really focus on the cash flow, and that's their main focus. I think those who are unsuccessful often focus on like a lump sum number. Maybe they're thinking like, well, if I can get to 1 million or I can get to 3 million or whatever the number might be, they over focus on some arbitrary value of assets, and they feel that once they hit that number that they can retire. Those who are really successful about it are more looking at the cash flow. They're looking at their cash flow planning, their budgeting, income from investments, passive income, real estate income, and they have a handle on what they're going to spend and what they can earn. I would say one other trait of the unsuccessful is that they get caught up with whatever is happening in the news, and they often will shift their investment strategy based on the scary news headlines. And sometimes that will cause a very permanent outcome in what they do with their money, which then leads to a much lower cash flow, which then causes a real harm to their lifestyle spending opportunities. So I think it really comes down to what do you focus on as you're preparing for or as you're entering into retirement? Like, what's your focus and where do you put all your energy? Is it in just an arbitrary number, or is it in the cash flow planning? Is it in what's the latest and greatest place to put money today, but it might compromise your lifestyle later? So I think there are a lot of factors that go into successful retirement.
So that news, what you mentioned about news and just getting, they do great at what they do, right? Which is get your attention and keep you glued to the TV or get you worried, especially when people get to the stage now of being getting close to being done with their actual work income or career income. And now they got to shift that mindset to now using the things that they've saved. Even people with a lot, we've seen it's an adjustment, right? Sometimes it's hard to start spending and following that plan. And then all of these things happening, looking back at just the beginning of last year where war was breaking out, inflation, and all these things were hitting us just one after the other.
Scary.
Any practical advice on that, staying focused and keeping your energy on the things that you can control and not getting too swayed or too, not wanting to shift that strategy? What do you tell people when they're worried about things going on in the world?
I really try to help them focus, like you said, Dave, on what's within their control, which is their spending commitments, their memberships, their subscriptions. It's a little bit scary for people to go off the payroll in a sense and become retirees and just live off your assets or your passive income. That's a big jump. They're used to getting a paycheck and going to work, and now it's like this scary feeling, and they're constantly asking themselves one question. And that question is, do I have enough? And I think that's the question that will perpetually be in their minds, causing anxiety and stress until they've gone through some very thorough planning to test, do they have enough? And so the question is, do you have enough? Well, let's look at the cash flow. Let's look at your expenses. Let's look at your taxes. How much income can you rely on? And then how do you avoid making big mistakes and being reactionary to what's happening out there in the world? We certainly don't discount the big concerns the wars, the inflation, the interest rates changing, housing market, the depression or recession that maybe is looming in the background. These are real concerns, but they're outside of your control.